Is a maritime choke point. While think of it like a strategic artery for the entire global economy. It's a narrow channel, and often it's the only practical way for a ship to get from one big body of water to another. And it's that very narrowness that makes them so absolutely critical and so incredibly vulnerable.
For this explainer, we're going to zoom in on 3 of the most contested choke points on the entire planet, and they're all right here in the Middle East: the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and of course, the Suez Canal. You could say that together, they are the center of gravity for global energy and trade.
To give you a sense of scale, let's just start with this number: 15%. That's the share of all global trade that passes through just the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. Everything from the oil coming out of the Middle East to the electronics coming out of Asia, it all funnels right through this one waterway. Okay, now let's talk energy. Every single day, a truly staggering 20 million barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, that's about 1/5 of all the oil the entire world consumes, and it's flowing through a channel that, at its narrowest point, is only about 30 miles wide. Just think about that.
So, right, we've established just how vital these passages are. But that brings us to the real question, doesn't it? What happens when these arteries get squeezed, or blocked, or threatened? Let's dive in, starting with the crisis that's all over the headlines right now. We're going to start our journey in the Red Sea, right at the mouth of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And look, this isn't some theoretical threat we're talking about. This is a live, ongoing crisis, with daily headlines and massive global consequences.
This timeline really shows you just how fast things went off the rails. It started in late 2023 with what were supposedly targeted attacks, but they quickly spiraled. By January 2024, even a Russian-owned tanker got hit, which showed the strikes were becoming pretty indiscriminate. And in just over a year, you're looking at over 200 attacks, and oil transit through this key choke point was literally cut in half.
And this chart, wow, it visualizes the domino effect perfectly. The attacks way down at the Bab el-Mandeb caused traffic through the Suez Canal, hundreds of miles north, to just plummet by 50%. Shipping companies just threw up their hands and decided it was safer to take the long, incredibly expensive route all the way around Africa. We're talking weeks and millions of dollars added to every single journey.
Now, this whole crisis has put a giant spotlight on this tiny little country with a massive strategic role, Djibouti. It sits right there at the mouth of the Red Sea, and its location has created this unprecedented concentration of foreign military powers. You've got the US, China, France, Japan, Italy. They all have bases on this one crowded shoreline, and they're all watching each other and this vital waterway.
And in that crowded space, you can really see the different playbooks of the great powers. The United States has jumped into an active security role, leading naval coalitions, shooting down Houthi drones and missiles. China, on the other hand, is playing a much longer game. Through its huge global infrastructure project, the Belt and Road Initiative, it's pouring money into ports, which its military then gets access to. It's all about securing its own economic lifelines.
Okay, let's move on to our next flashpoint, the Strait of Hormuz. Now here, the tension isn't so much about daily attacks, it's more about the constant looming threat of a total shutdown. A threat that gives Iran immense leverage over the entire global economy. This chart just makes it crystal clear how critical Hormuz is. And it's not just about oil. Look at this. About 1/5 of all global oil and 1/5 of all global liquefied natural gas, or LNG, flows through this single choke point. I mean, for a country like Qatar, this is basically their only way to get their main export to the rest of the world. This quote right here really gets to the heart of Iran's strategy. By keeping its nuclear program at a threshold level, meaning it's capable but not quite weaponized, it gains a ton of regional power. This lets it use the Strait of Hormuz as this powerful geopolitical tool, a constant threat of closure that it can use as leverage without ever having to fire a single shot. So the crucial point is that this constant threat has forced the Gulf states to invest billions in workarounds. Saudi Arabia built this massive pipeline to carry 5 million barrels of oil a day clear across the country to the Red Sea. The UAE did something similar with their own pipeline. They are literally trying to engineer their way around a geopolitical problem.
So all this brings us to the new energy chessboard. Because with all these old traditional routes under threat, new alliances are starting to form to try and redraw the energy map entirely, creating new corridors that bypass these choke points altogether.
And at the heart of this new strategy is what they're calling the 3+1 alliance. You've got Greece, Cyprus, and Israel, with some serious backing from the United States, and they form this strategic partnership. The shared goal? To tap into the Eastern Mediterranean's huge natural gas reserves and create reliable new energy routes to Europe.
Now, their original plan for this massive 1,900-kilometer pipeline turned out to be just way too expensive. So they've pivoted to a much more flexible LNG strategy, and it's pretty clever. Here's how it works. Gas from Israeli and Cypriot fields gets piped to existing terminals in Egypt. There, it gets cooled into a liquid form, that's the LNG, which can then be put on tankers. From there, it heads to Europe, with Greece acting as the main gateway. It's a really pragmatic and powerful solution.
And this alliance isn't just about gas. They're also planning something called the Great Sea Interconnector, which is this incredibly ambitious subsea power cable that's over 1,200 kilometers long. This project would basically create an electricity superhighway linking the power grids of all three nations and tying them closer to Europe. It's all about enhancing everyone's energy security.
So, after looking at all these crises and the strategic responses, where does that really leave us? Well, the region isn't in an all-out war, but it is far, far from stable. It's existing in this really fragile and honestly very dangerous balance.
As analyst Dr. Marios Epthemiopoulos puts it, the region is in a state of managed instability. It's a dangerous equilibrium. It's a world of constant friction and brinkmanship where everyone's trying to keep things from just boiling over. But a single miscalculation, one wrong move, could ignite a much, much wider conflict.
And the costs of this instability, they go way beyond just shipping delays. You've got severe environmental damage from oil spills that threaten these fragile ecosystems. You have the economic costs that get passed on to all of us as consumers. And then there's this, a truly worrying development. Sinking ships have actually severed undersea fiber optic cables, disrupting global internet traffic and highlighting a whole new vulnerability that I don't think many of us had really considered.
And all of this leaves us with a final crucial thought. The crises in the Red Sea and the tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, they really reveal the fragility of the systems that we all depend on. The very geography that made globalization possible is now its greatest vulnerability. So the question we're left with is this. In a world of contested choke points, is any supply chain truly secure?